Okay, good afternoon, ladies. It seems as if we have, um, just a very small group. So I was giving everybody the opportunity to join. However, some joined and then some went right back off. So I don't want to hold you up any further. All of this is being recorded. So persons who, I guess, come in a little bit late will have the opportunity to watch the recording. But good afternoon again. I hope everybody's having a productive week. My name is Miss Bullard. I would have been with the Institute for the past 6 years teaching intro to money laundering and compliance, intermediate, as well as supervisory skills in customer service and marketing. I want to give everybody the opportunity to introduce themselves, and I guess we'll have to wait later on because a big part of this class is networking. So hopefully, by the end of the 5 weeks, all of us will know each other. We will be able to network corporately and share our knowledge and our ideas. Okay, and so welcome. So this class is a 5-week class. 4 weeks it takes us to get through the book. There are only 8 chapters. The chapters are very, very small, 1 or 2 pages. I mean, chapter 1 may have about 5 pages, but it has a lot of pictures that you need to go online and research. Compliance is very comprehensive. It requires lots of reading. And it's not like operations where there's a manual, you read the manual and then it tells you what to do. Compliance requires a lot of research, a lot of reading. It's very comprehensive, and then it's decision based. So once you would have done your reading, went out and did your research, then you have to have the ability to make a decision. Now, you may say, well, Miss Bullard, that's very remedial. Everybody can make a decision. But surprisingly, not everybody can make a decision. Okay. And also, many persons have an issue reading. In my last class, a lady told me, Miss Bullard, when I read one page, I fall asleep. Does that happen to anybody else here? After you read one page, one paragraph, you fall asleep?
No.
No?
Well, it depends on the content. Yes.
Okay, good. So
On how
again,
time the day is, how much work we got.
Okay. So so some people fall asleep and some people read, but they do not comprehend it. I don't know how it is in Panama and Mexico, but in the Bahamas, we learned comprehension up until like primary school, which was grade 4 or 5, and then it stopped. And I think comprehension, that subject, is very important because a lot of times we don't understand what we read or we misinterpret what we read. And sometimes persons read and then they go and train somebody and they give them the entire wrong or incorrect information. Okay, so very comprehensive, requires reading, requires research, requires a decision to be made after you comprehend. Okay, and that's the basis of compliance. And so I normally tell persons, if you have an issue reading and if you have an issue making decisions, you're always asking somebody else what they think or what decision you should make, then perhaps compliance isn't for you. But if you have the ability to tie yourself down and read and try and make sense and do loads of research to ensure that you have a positive outcome, then compliance can be for you. Okay, and so this course is 3-tier. This is introduction. It's for 5 weeks. The next stage is then intermediate. That's 10 weeks. And then you would go on to ICA, which is 18 months of anti-money laundering and 18 months of compliance, risk, and governance. Now, many persons stop at intro because they say, Miss Bullard, that would have covered my annual training for the year. Because of course, this is a statutory requirement in the Bahamas. And what a statutory requirement means is that it's required by law. So everybody that works in the financial services sector, it's required by law for them to have an annual AML and compliance training. So this would just cover the basis for your annual training. It goes a little bit more in depth, and it is a certificate program, but that's all this would cover. So after 5 weeks or by week 3, you should be able to determine, is this for me? do I want to go any further, or definitely not my field, and I covered my training for the year and I'm going to move on. Okay. And so at first it's going to be very cloudy. Ms. Bullet talks a lot. Sometimes you won't know what Ms. Bullet is talking about, but you have to ask questions. I need loads of feedback. This course, like I said, it requires a lot of research. And what you do each week is you take each chapter, 2 chapters each week we're going to discuss. You read that and it's discussion based. So we won't sit and read out of the book. You read before and we come and we have a discussion based on what you would have read to prove to me that you understand. Okay, there's also a lot of cases at the back of the book, and there's an appendix with questions and practice essays and practice multiple choice questions that you can do at the end of the course. So primarily it's a 3-hour course. We normally take a break at 8:30. So between 8 and 8:30 is the time allotted for you to go to the back of the book and just, practice some of the questions in the appendixes, read some of the red flags and try and answer some of the multiple choice questions. And all of this will prepare you then for the final exam, because it's going to come quick. You're going to blink and it's going to be over. Okay, for 4 very quick weeks. Okay, good. Any questions so far? No? No questions. Okay, so let's look at the.
I have
Yes,
a question.
Go ahead.
How does the ICA compare to the camps?
Okay, so ICA is UK based, CAMS is
Okay.
US based.
Okay.
Okay, and so ICA is, we are common law, the Bahamas is a common law jurisdiction, and so is the UK. So most of our laws, policies and procedures are similar then to common law jurisdiction. If you go and do ACAMS, sorry, they're going to train you on a lot of US policies and procedures, which won't really be relevant to you, because in the Bahamas, if you work in the Bahamas, we deal mostly with, like I said, common law. We have Canadian banks and then Bahamian banks.
Right.
And so I strongly recommend, in this book, I do have some takeaways from ACAMS because it's a good program. It's cheaper, and then it's like a watered down version of ICA. So ICA is 18 months. It dives in deep. ACAMS is on the surface and US based. Many persons who have gone and done ACAMS because it was a shorter term as well, it was cheaper, found themselves still having to come and do ICA.
Oh.
Yeah. So are you familiar with the Series 7 and then the Canadian securities?
Yes.
Yeah. So, of course, Canadian securities is only geared towards Canada. And so like a watered down version of the Series 7 that is US.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That clears it up a whole lot because, I mean, and it's interesting you said it that way because CAMS would say, okay, we're the gold standard in AML training when compared to the ACF. Yes.
No, in the US, gold standard where though? Yeah,
Okay.
because we're in the Bahamas. Yeah, ICA would be considered the gold standard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So as we go through, and these courses were born out of persons, signing up from ICA, and they may have had a first degree, but not have any compliance exposure. And so they found themselves unsuccessful. And so this is how intro was born, and then intermediate was born to help persons to make that decision before they make such a big commitment. So if you find it difficult to finish intro, don't go on to intermediate, and definitely don't go on to ICA. But again, if it's your goal and you've decided that, hey, this is my career and I want to accomplish this, if at first you don't succeed, you try again. So it just depends on you. And like I said in the beginning, a lot of this is going to be very cloudy. But as we go on, you will see that, okay, now I'm understanding. I see what Mr. Little is saying. I can connect the dots. It's clear and I understand. So don't, be overwhelmed if you don't get it right away. This requires practice. Okay, and so I encourage everybody to start their library. As you see for homework, keep those homeworks because you would have done research and you will see those questions being recycled and coming back around again. When you do research, save them and organize it properly now that you're at the beginning. Because if you're going to go all the way to ICA, trust me, you're going to need this again. And many persons who ask me for help when they have to write their essays for ICA, I say, go and get the intro book, go and get the intermediate book, look back through, because these books break down, the gives you the meat or the information that's required for you to be successful when you get on the to ICA. So you're gonna do a lot of research, keep it, okay? Save it and organize it and keep a library as you go through, because again, it's decision based. You're going to have to go back over, your research, and some things may change and may be updated. And you're going to have to then decide, which is the best course of action to take. Okay, so keep those notes in an orderly fashion so you can retrieve them, right? Okay, great. So compliance is a regulated function. And what does it mean to be regulated? That means that it's an organization can put an ad in the paper and they can say, I want this compliance officer. And they can interview you, Ms. Enfield, and then decide that's who I choose. However, the regulator then has to approve it. So they have, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the gaming board process. There's a 66-page questionnaire that you fill out. They even want your children's birth certificates. So they go very deep and they try and do a background check on you and to ensure that you're fit and proper. Okay. And they also ask for references and financial references and your resume. So they want to ensure that you're fit and proper for the position, as well as you get along with your neighbors and you're a good person within the community, and that's what makes you fit and proper for the position. So always remember that it's a regulated function. And so once you would have been approved by the regulator, and in the Bahamas, the regulators are the central bank, the Securities Commission, the Compliance Commission, the Insurance Commission, and the Gaming Board. So once you would have been approved by one of those entities, then you're approved as a compliance officer for your institution, and then you send word or notice to the FIU, the Financial Intelligence Unit, confirming to them that you have been selected and you have been approved. Okay, so regulated function, and of course, you cannot be approved without ACAMS or ICA designation, and normally they ask for 4 or 5 years of experience. So if you're in the position right now as an assistant, you're on the right track. Okay. Any questions so far?
No, not at the moment.
Yes. Hi, Bernice. How are you? Thank you for joining us. Yes, the material received. Yeah, we're going to go over the instruction sheet just to make sure that everybody understands what's required. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so we can look at the instruction sheet. Let's see. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so overall, to pass this class, the overall passing grade is 70%. When you go on to ICA, there are 3 essays required on the AML side and 3 essays required on the governance, risk, and compliance side. Those essays have to be no less than 3,500 words. And so therefore, in an effort to, practice, whatever you practice, you become. So you practice now from intro, when you get to ICA, you won't be as overwhelmed. And so what's required of you for 20% of your grade is to complete 2 essays. And the average between those essays would be your grade for, for the 20%. So you are to write, there's a selection there. There are 5 questions. You can complete all 5, but you can only submit 2 for a grade, and that will represent 20% of your grade. Now, please, Miss Bullet, I've seen, I've been doing this for the past 6 years. I've seen tons and tons of essays. Okay, I teach all the way up to ICA. Please don't go and just get a body of somebody essay and just copy and paste it. Okay, I'm online all day reading, and so what you do is you read and then you put it into your own words. That proves comprehension. That's what we're looking for. Okay, when you go out into the newspapers and you do research, that gives you more points because it shows that you know how to tie in current day information or what the question is asking. Okay, please, please, please avoid copy and paste. What happens when you copy and paste? I send it back and I said, if you would like a reasonable grade, I give you 2 days to finish this, to redo. Please, I don't want any redos. Okay. Last class, I had 21 persons and I had like 50 in redos every essay, please. And so I will give you feedback and let you know where you went wrong and we can go over it. So please ensure that you complete your homework so you can get that 20%. Now, I had one class where persons would say, oh, Miss Bullet, it was hot, I was overwhelmed, work was crazy, it was COVID. I didn't have time to do my homework. But you need 70% to pass overall. So if you do your homework, you have the opportunity to sit comfortably in this final exam because you would go into the final exam with 30%. But if you don't do your homework, you will sit uncomfortably in the final exam. The overall passing grade is 70%, which the final exam is 70% of your grade. So that means you would have to get 100% on the final exam to pass this class. Now, what is the possibility that that happens? I know we have some scholars, but is that an easy achievement?
Mm-mm.
Okay, great. So let's try and make this as easy as possible. Please do your homework. Miss Bullet does not have a stick to chase you to do your homework. If you don't submit it, then you don't get the grade. Okay, and each homework, there's a due date. It's always going to be due the Wednesday before the class. So if you try and you want to do question 1, but you miss the date, don't say, Miss Bullet, just take off the 10%. No, just pick another question and submit your homework. Remember, 2 pieces are required. Okay, and that would help you to sit comfortably in the exam. All of these questions, these 5 questions, were taken from past papers. So there's no need to say, Ms. Bullet, send us a past paper, please. Everything in the book, in the appendix, everything, all these essay questions were taken from past papers. Okay? So along with the 20%, there's a 10% for participation. What does that mean? Talk back to Miss Bullet. Give Miss Bullet feedback. Okay? And so what do? You go after the class, you read the chapters, you read the newspaper, you come and share what's happening in the news. You discuss the chapters and you prove that you would have done research. And so you get 5%. And where do you find this research? What you do is subscribe to the following social media pages of the Bahamas Financial Services Board, the Central Bank of the Bahamas, BACO. You can now register. BACO is Bahamas Association of Compliance Officers. You can register as a student. Normally, your institution will pay a membership fee. So it's up to you if you join BACO right now, the Securities Commission, the FIU, and any other applicable website. And you will find that once you subscribe to their page, they will send you daily news or daily events that what is happening throughout the community or within the Bahamas. Okay. Another way to get the additional 5% is networking. So of course, we live in a society now where if you don't know somebody, they say friends, family, and lovers get all the positions right. And so if your friend, on top and you don't know anybody at the helm of the organization, it's difficult for you to move up. So we want to ensure that we meet the right people and that we want to know the movers and the shakers of the corporate world, of corporate Bahamas and corporate Panama. We want to network with them. And so what we want to do is we want to attend Rotary, Toastmasters, or Kiwanis via Zoom or in person, because I know COVID is getting out of control again. And we come and share with the class, and then we get an additional 5%. Okay, so of course we know these persons in the corporate world, they're not hanging out at the dock or the fish fry or at the clubs in Panama, but they are in these civic organizations, correct? So we're not looking for friendships. We're not looking for godparents for our children. We're not looking for boyfriends. We're looking to network with persons who can assist us in excelling our corporate career. Okay, so I had some people come back and say, Ms. Bullet, I meet this nice handsome guy. No, no 5%. Okay, no boyfriends. Corporate, it's business. Okay, so draw the line. Okay, so good network. You have to know. And in this class, normally I ask persons to start a WhatsApp group. And if you're gonna go all the way through, you're gonna need that support. So network with somebody in the class. You never know. They may be able to share various information with you, help you make those very crucial decisions, and help you along in your corporate world. So definitely, Sharon, we want your number because we coming to Panama,
Of
right?
course.
Right. Good. Okay, so the final exam, like I said, is 70%. It should be held on Thursday, August 25th from 6 to 9 p.m. And it should be 50 in multiple choice questions and 7 essay questions. And of course, out of this 5, more than likely you would see a repeat of the question or something similar, to what you would have written for homework. And so you can keep your homework because that's 2 questions already down pat. Okay, and again, this is very, very achievable. This class has been very successful. We have like an 85% passing rate. And so normally if you just follow what Ms. Bullet says in these instructions, this is 100% achievable. Okay, so get into that exam comfortably with 30 full points and you're halfway there.
Ms. Bullet, I have just 2 questions, please.
Yes, go ahead.
One, to confirm the date of the exam, because the workbook has August 26th and the instruction sheet has the 25th. Is it the last Thursday of August?
I'm going to pull it up right now to see if, that's probably just a typo.
26th.
Yeah, so the 26th. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So it is the 26th.
Okay.
Yeah, Thursday. So just a date off. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, each for the homework, each due date is on the Wednesday before the class.
Before class. Okay.
Okay.
I just needed some clarity around the homework instructions. So the five questions that are listed, those are the essay topics, or those are just individual homework assignments that will be due each week?
No, each of them are essay topics. So it says each essay should be typed in standard essay form, 1,000 to 1,200 words, introduction, body, and conclusion. See pages 17 to 19 in the ICA handbook for referencing and further directions. And so on those pages in the ICA handbook, it just tells you their style of referencing. So it's good to practice from now, their way. Because persons have gotten up to like 20-30% off because they didn't reference properly. Okay, so I don't normally take it off, but I encourage you to practice now to do it the correct way. Okay, so just those 2 pages in the ICA homework handbook that you would need to read. Okay, and I got a question by text. If this is open book, absolutely not. No open book, no cheat sheet, nothing. Okay, so it's achievable. Don't be overwhelmed, and it's not open book. Okay, and by the time we get to the 5th week, this will be clear as mud. Okay.
I have a question. I'm sorry, English is not my main language, but the thing is that I know that we have like 5 topics, but how are we supposed to just submit 2 essays, like for grading? That's what I don't get. Should we work on I was planning to work every week on 1 essay just to answer those questions, but how are we submitting the essays for the grade?
Right. So whichever one you decide, you can decide that I don't want to submit question 1, I'll submit question 2 and 4. It's up to you. So you can work on all 5 and keep them because you will need them when we get to review class, but you just submit 2. Everything else is just for practice.
Okay, and the submission for those topics are on the due date that it says.
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay. So for example, if I just want 4 and 5, then I will have to wait until August 18 and to submit those questions.
Correct.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes. And as you go through, even if you start your research now, as you go through the course, as we go through the course, you will see that you would have picked up some new ideas, some more information. You may come across some additional research that you can add to your paper. So there's no problem with starting now and then just adding along the way before the submission date. Just like I said, it gets clearer as you go through it.
As we go through the
Yeah.
Thanks. And also regarding the word counting, we can eliminate, we don't have to count those words in the referencing, right?
No, don't count the words in your referencing, and also do not, copy large pieces of the law or a guideline. You don't get any points for that. Okay. And so if you can refer to the FTRA section 4 and that's it, but don't copy and paste the whole thing to make up your your word count, because you normally don't get points. Okay. And so with ICA as well, they have this system called True-In. And so True-In, what you do is you upload your paper to them, and it actually tells you 5% of your paper came from the newspaper, 5% came from somebody else's paper, 5% came from somewhere else. And if as you go, they give you an average. And if your average goes up to 50%, you would have wasted your time completely because you don't even get a grade, because they would feel that the paper was just copy and paste. Okay, so like I said, practice now whilst we're in introduction. You read a body of work and then you put it in your own words. Okay, because we're comprehending and checking that you comprehend. Okay, and we fact check everything that you write. So make sure your references are correct. Okay, Bernice, you're saying, are these questions refreshed each week? When you say refreshed, what do you mean? Will you get new questions each week?
Yes.
Okay, no, these questions are each have a due date. And so these are the 5 questions that you have to choose from.
Okay.
Yeah. So you just decide which question you want to answer.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay, sorry. Good evening,
Right.
everyone.
Good evening. So any questions so far?
This document that you're showing us, do we have a copy of it?
Yes, I would have sent it to your email.
Okay, awesome.
Right. Okay, good. And so we do understand how to subscribe to the various regulators and get the information each week. We do understand that as compliance professionals, we read the newspaper every day because we need to understand what's happening in our country. And it's not the comics that we read the business section, right? Don't come and say, Miss Bullet, Donald Duck did this. No, you read the business section of the newspaper and you come and share. That contributes to your participation grade.
I do have a question, Ms. Bullet, if you can explain to me. The attendance of Toastmasters, is that a regular becoming a member or just attending every so often?
No, you just have to attend one meeting, but 90% of the persons that attended found it so beneficial for their networking purpose that they joined.
Okay.
So there's no requirement to join, but just come back and share with us. This is what happened in the meeting. I introduced myself. This was the topic of discussion. Now, persons, normally it's not, sometimes the discussion isn't business-based, The other day, somebody in my class attended and they spoke on backyard gardening. And so that was interesting, or men's health. So once you come, they have various topics. Once you attend, you just come and share and tell us what the discussion was about. And at Toastmasters, they normally have a word for the day. So ensure that you get the word for the day.
Okay.
Okay. And
Yes.
so if you're a bit shy, and this could be very intimidating, like I said, this is where all the CEOs and the top execs hang out, network within the class and get somebody to go with you so it's not as intimidating.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Miss
Okay,
Fuller,
so we
off of that, I have a question.
uh-huh.
I recently became a member of a Kiwanis club. So in that instance, would my club's regular meeting count if I were to still give information on the meeting that we would have had that week, or would I be required to actually attend another club's
Yeah, I
meeting?
kind of, because we want you to network. We want you to meet as much persons as possible. We want your name out there. So once you are qualified and they see Alex Dia, I know who she is and she is qualified, she gets the position. So the whole point is
Okay.
to network and get as comfortable with the execs so they know who you are. And primarily my career was spent at Royal Bank, so I speak highly of Royal Bank, and I always refer to things that happened whilst I was there. And you would find that when persons, I had a staff of about 6, and when positions became available, once persons were qualified, that's who they choose. Everybody is 5 of us in here, all of us are qualified, but who am I most familiar with? And so
Right.
that's who is chosen, and that's just how it works in life. It's like a human factor around the world. In Canada, whilst I was at Royal Bank, the entry level persons felt that there was no way in moving up. So they had to create many initiatives, to ensure that the execs knew who they were. So they had like a mentor-mentee program. They also had like a speed dating initiatives because it was so bad where a person said, if I don't know anybody, they do not choose me. And I am
Right.
already been to school, have all the qualifications, and I can't seem to move up. So this isn't just in the Bahamas, this is around the world.
Mm.
Okay, so get out there, introduce yourself, and get to know the movers and shakers in the corporate world.
Okay.
Ms.
Okay.
Fuller, yeah, Ms.
Yeah.
Fuller, I have another question. I am not from a banking background, and compliance is, we have compliance in my industry. I'm coming from health. We have
You're in. Sorry, I didn't hear where you are.
health industry, the health
Okay.
industry. So we have compliance in how we operate in the medical laboratory. But this is a whole new regime, new genre for me. So can you explain to me exactly what a compliance officer is, who a compliance officer, what do they do, and how important are they to the banking industry?
Okay, so a compliance officer is extremely important to the banking industry, and I'll just give you some history of how compliance started. And
Okay.
no worries that you're not in the financial services sector, but the financial services sector in the Bahamas is made up of the gaming board, so all the gaming houses, the Securities Commission, so all the security firms and the broker dealers, the central bank, so all the banks, most recently, accountants, real estate, and law firms that have a corporate service providers arm, where they provide financial services to their clients, the insurance commission that deals with all the insurance companies. So that who makes up the financial services sector. However, most surprisingly, compliance has expanded. The other day, there was a hack on the oil and gas line in Russia. And so oil and gas has compliance officers. The other day, I had 2 persons from the pharmaceutical council in the class, and I was very surprised. I asked them, why did you join? And they said, well, we have that special pharmacist that gives persons prescriptions without the prescription.
Oh
And
my.
so we are here because we are going to enforce, compliance from the pharmacies, that if the person does not have a prescription, you cannot walk in and just, give a prescription. And so that is very popular. I also had somebody from agriculture, because of course, we're going to make marijuana legal. So of course we need to ensure that they are compliant, that they follow the policies and procedures. And so the history about compliance, about in 2000, I don't know if you recall, the Bahamas was blacklisted.
Mhm.
And internationally, they were trying to clamp down on money laundering and terrorist financing. So in 2000, compliance was born. Like finance and Royal Bank has been around from 1908. That's more than 100 years. So of course, 100 years ago, they had finance, they had operations, they had HR. However, not until the year 2000 was compliance born. And so we are the gatekeepers of the financial services sector, or all sectors now, to ensure that all policy and procedures and laws that are in place are adhered to as well as enforced. Okay?
Mhm.
And so what happened in 2000 was the international regulators, which are the FATF, the IMF, the World Bank, the Basel Committee, they created 40 recommendations, and they said, we recommend that countries put these recommendations into law to help us mitigate the risk of money laundering and terrorist financing. So what compliance does is the department ensures that all policies and procedures, all laws are in place within the institution, and that the company adheres to what the laws say.
Mm.
Okay,
There's
so
a-
we are
yeah.
the gatekeepers.
There's a company called BBSQ. I think they have more or less mirrored your same compliance principles, and they're actually starting that for the healthcare sector. And I don't even know if you're aware of that, but compliance is extremely important even within the healthcare industry. Have you heard of BBSQ?
No,
Bahamas Standards.
No, I haven't heard of BBSQ, but the first time I heard about it was about 3 years ago, when the two ladies from the Pharmaceutical Council joined.
Oh, okay. So is there any affiliation? Is there any connection? Is there, are you planning to mainstream or share how you operate, or this is just a separate Bahamian government entity?
Yeah, well, we're the school for the financial services sector.
Okay.
So I imagine that they are going to perhaps liaise. I don't know if BBSQ is going to have like their own school where they speak specifically to their laws, but
Okay.
we speak specifically to
Financial area.
financial laws.
Okay.
But again, it's still relevant, because once you complete this course, you would need to find out who your regulator is, find out what policies and procedures they have in place, and ensure that that's disseminated throughout your organization. So the
Mhm.
premise will still be the same.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. It's just that the laws will be different.
Okay.
Okay. And so what I attached was the central bank guidelines, because again, out of all these regulators, the central bank in the Bahamas has been around the longest, right? And so they are more detailed and they have more information. And again, that's just my point of view. And so I talked about, the IMF and the FATF. They are the international regulators. And so they make recommendations, but of course, if countries do not put recommendations in place, they blacklist them, right? And so in 2000, they blacklisted us. And so the Bahamas updated their laws to ensure that we could come off the blacklist. Now, the Bahamas has used a staggered approach, because compliance is very expensive. Compliance is very expensive, regulations are very expensive. However, compliance makes no money for the business. So of course, the business does not want to inject any money into compliance. So when the bonus comes around and the budget, you see all the money going towards sales. That's who brings the money into the institution. So They heavily invest on sales, and compliance has to scramble and beg for money to ensure that, we can carry out all this policy and procedure that is required of us. So nobody, the regulators didn't get any money. The Bahamas didn't get any money to implement all this policy and procedure. So in 2000, they put a shell in. So they put in the laws to try and get us off the blacklist. But what happened, like I said, is expensive. Many banks shut down because they simply could not afford the systems needed. They didn't have the staff. At minimum, in 2000, if you wanted to start compliance at your organization, which was a requirement, in 2001, you could not get your banking license or securities license without the compliance officer on staff. That's a minimum of what, $60,000, $70,000 back then for that's just one person. And of course, just depending on how many clients you had, just one person wouldn't have been sufficient. You needed an assistant, you needed a risk person, you needed persons to man systems, you needed to pay for system, and some of these systems to check the names like World Check and other LexisNexis and all of that. You had to train persons on how to use it. You had to train persons on what was now required. Then just think about, we never photocopied back in 2000. I was at Finco. We never photocopied the passport. We wrote down the passport number and address all this information. Then you had to pay somebody to keep it. So we looking at minimum probably $500,000 just to implement compliance in the institution back in 2000. So, and then it wasn't going to make any money for us. So businesses really thought that, we were, internationally, the people were crazy. They were trying to wipe us out. And so there were all sorts of conspiracy theories. Okay. Now, 21 years later, along the way, once we were blacklisted, we put more policies and procedures in place. Of course, the Bahamas is known as a tax haven. So we had to get rid of all those offshore accounts, all those people who did not disclose to their countries that they had money offshore because they were evading taxes. So you would see many of the offshore banks close. And this did not only happen in the Bahamas. I have a colleague in Switzerland who said we had 250 banks and trusts in 2018. In 2021, we only have 50. So Switzerland alone lost 200 banks and trusts. And of course, we see that many Royal Bank branches closed down. And that was the first time since like I said, they've been around for 100 years, and I've been there 16 years, never knew a branch or people to downsize or go home. And now that seems to be the order of the day. Many branches have closed. Many Scotiabank branches have closed all throughout the Family Island. We lost all these banks. Okay, so this is the net effect of having to put all this policy and procedure, hire all these staff, train them each year. This is the net effect of it. Banking used to be 20% of GDP. We lost 17%. It's now 3%. It used to be our second industry in the Bahamas. Okay, and so that's the cost of being compliant. However, if we're not compliant, then there are the repercussions. Many countries around the world, they simply say, we don't do business with high-risk countries, right? And so right now, the Bahamas is medium risk. And so, again, we're trying to implement like the sand dollar to make sure that we're not as cash intensive. And there are other initiatives that the governor is putting in place to ensure that internationally, we don't get a high-risk rating. So persons in other countries don't do business with us. Okay, and so essentially that's what's going to happen in the medical field. You will find that some small clinics can't afford to, or they can't do it, and they may just close out. You will see the industry contract.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, because they just don't have the money. They can't afford. Okay, and so that's why the Bahamas, went through a staggered approach, because they didn't want to wipe out the industry immediately. So from 2000, like I said, we put some little law in place, we did some changes, but in 2017, they came down on us hard and said, listen, this is now 17 years old, you all had enough time. We understand the industry is being wiped out, but we have to curb this money laundering problem and terrorist financing problem. And we found that out of the 40 recommendations that they had made, the Bahamas was deficient in 22. And so we had the task of ensuring that those laws were implemented and put in place. And so in 2018, we put the meat in our laws, and so we can become compliant in many countries. It wasn't only the Bahamas deficient in so many. Switzerland, all over Europe, all those countries as well were had to update, and they were deficient in just as many as we were. And so now I think we are compliant in 30 of the 40 recommendations, and we have about 10 more to work on, okay,
Oh,
to
that's
become
good.
fully compliant.
It's very good. It's very good.
Sorry?
I said that's very good. That's very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, so we're there, but again, we've lost so much. And again, you can see the effects of the law. For the first time, we see our politicians being brought before the court. That's not seen before, never has happened, But the the CFATF did come in and they said, we don't see anybody being charged with money laundering.
Oh my.
Are the Bahamians law-abiding citizens? And so this was back in 2017. And so we did not have money laundering on our books as a predicate crime. What you saw happening is stealing by reason of employment, which has a lesser charge. You saw fraud, you saw theft. However, if you listen to the news today, you will hear theft and money laundering, stealing by reason of employment and money laundering. The politicians, there are 21 crimes now under money laundering, and that's bribery and corruption. So you saw the Shane Gibson and the Frank Smith and all of them being brought before the courts, right? And charged with bribery and corruption and money laundering. Okay, so that money laundering as a predicate crime was first put in the Bahamian law in 2018.
So they were charged. Were they ever jailed?
No, they all won their cases, surprisingly. Which brings me to say, I always tell persons, only poor people go to jail. Okay? So we have to make sure that we are not poor. Okay?
Yes,
the rich, they know they are networking. Those judges are their friends. They probably the godparents to their children. Okay?
Dear.
It's all about who you know. So again, we're being internationally watched, and they want to know if our laws are effective, right? And so who's going to end up in jail? Us, right? The very new and fresh compliance officer who just graduated from school, who don't know no better, who, again, you could only eliminate risk, or you could mitigate risk. Sorry, you cannot eliminate it. So no matter what you could do, you could go to school, you could have all the controls in place, but these scammers and these hackers they're way more smarter than us, right? So why we are here is to ensure that if our businesses are infiltrated by money launderers or terrorist financiers, that we know what procedure should be in place and that we followed it, okay? And that we train our staff and they know the procedure and they followed it. And that's why we're here. So you cannot eliminate it. So don't get up in arms and, don't be upset if you're infiltrated. Those people sit down in a room all day long, and hacking is their job. Whilst we 9 to 5, hacking 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you need to know your regulator. You need to know what the law states. You need to know what your policy and procedure states. Okay? And so we start with international law, which is the 40 recommendations, then Bahamian law, then your regulator's guideline, and then your institution should have an AML policy as well, because that's specifically tailored towards the services that you are and the products that you offer. So there's about 4 stages, and it'll be the same thing for Panama, international law, Panamanian law, the regulators, the Central Bank of Panama, and then your organization's anti-money laundering policy. So you want to ensure that you have that. You want to have a copy of, and I'm going to show you on the screen. And even though all of us aren't in banking, and that's just the central bank guidelines. And I attached it again because, like I said, the central bank has been around for many years. And so this policy is more sound to me. And if you look at international standards, there are 40 recommendations and each one of them have 5 pages. So it's a lot of reading. Let me just show you where we start. I pulled that up, but where is it? Let me just, this thing, how do I get this down? Okay, here we go. So international standards, this is how the 40 recommendations look. And again, I want you to get familiar with it because I'm going to refer to it many times, okay? So these are the 40 recommendations. What is very important, because I had persons do entire papers on all recommendations. The first thing you do is ensure that you get the updated version. And this says updated 2019. I don't think any updates have come out since then. Check this date. I had persons write a 1,000-word essay on the old FAT F1 that expired in 2012. They got no points. They had to redo it because all of the numbers would have changed. And if you look at it, you see old number, new number. So that's your first check. Whenever you read a document, check the date. Because from 2000, everything has changed, okay? To accommodate the new trends or things that we never experienced. Like in 2000, we didn't even have the terror 9/11 until 2001. So of course, they had to go back and they made 9 special recommendations just on terrorist financing, okay? So check the date. And again, go, if Ms. Bullitt says, tell me about a terrorist financing offense, you go right there. Look in the table of contents and you find that offense and you go from there. Okay, so that way it'll cut down the amount of reading, because what happens, a lot of people get frustrated because there's so much information and you have to learn how to scale it down and put the meat in your essays or put the meat in your answers, okay? And so you could easily get caught up by putting irrelevant information that won't give you any points. Okay, so ensure that you read the table of contents, okay, and get familiar with this 40 recommendation, okay? And this is then the central bank guidelines. Again, it says date issue May 2009, but it was revised 2018. So please don't pick up the 2009 copy. And again, this is 91 pages, and not all 91 pages will be applicable to your institution because you may not offer some of the products and services listed here. Okay, so again, you go to the table of contents and you just pick out what is relevant to you or whatever information you need. And that way that would cut down a lot of your research. Okay, any questions so far? Are we keeping up?
Yes, great.
Okay, good. Y'all have to talk back to me so I don't fall asleep. I don't want to sleep too. Okay, good.
Ms. Bullard, one
Yes?
question. Should each of the references for our paper be a certain, be after 2000?
Yeah, or you have to go with the current law. You won't get any points for outdated, expired law. Okay, so that's why I said you have to check the date. You can't quote me the law from 2000, you won't get it. You'll have to do a redo. So check the date to make sure it's most current, and everything was updated in the Bahamas in 2018. And so Sharon, you can go and do research to see if your laws were updated in Panama after 2018, because I don't expect you to quote the Bahamas. You can quote Panama to make it easy for you. Okay, so check those dates.
Okay.
Okay, good. So we good so far?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right. And so that's the guidelines, that's the 40 recommendations that we will refer to often. Okay. And like I said, the book has very, very short chapters. There's only 8. We will discuss 2 each week, but ensure that you read first and come prepared for the discussion. And then you will spend some time in the appendix and doing the multiple choice questions just to, for practice to ensure that you get it.
So
Okay?
you're saying that the Central Bank of Bahamas' handbook, because I came late, so you might have said it, and I did not hear what you said. So we are to read a chapter of the Central Bank of the Bahamas.
No, the book, only the book.
Oh,
You
Which
received
book?
your anti-money laundering book from BIFs?
I need to check. How does the book look? Let me see. Do you have a copy of the book on hand?
Alex, could you just show her? That's how the book looks, yes.
Okay, and you got this from online? You
From
copied?
BIFs?
No, I went
Or-
to the office. and
Yeah.
got it.
Oh, I didn't go into the office to collect that book. How much does the book cost?
No, it's included. I put it at the bottom of the email saying to go into the office, but perhaps you can call Miss Dean and ask her to email it to you.
Awesome. Okay,
Okay?
will do.
Okay, good. I just wanna do a check. There's supposed to be one more person online, so no, that's okay. We'll go straight into chapter 1. Okay? So of course some of you don't have your book, but we will go into chapter 1 and hopefully you can keep abreast. Okay, so chapter 1 talks about money laundering and terrorist financing, and then some of you can get your 10 points tonight because we're gonna have 2 sets of readings. Okay, understanding money laundering. And so what is money laundering? And so they conceal the ownership and origin of property from their criminal act and they place it into the financial services sector. Okay, and so there are 3 stages of money laundering. The placement is where cash is derived from the criminal activity and infused into the financial system. Layering usually involves a complex system of transactions designed to hide the source and the ownership of funds. And integration is the stage at which laundered funds are reintroduced into the legitimate economy. Okay, so let me just give you a real life scenario that I experienced many years ago when I was at Finco Robinson Road. So here I was, the teller supervisor at Finco Robinson Road, and we had a car wash guy outside. And of course, we only knew the car wash guy, just like many institutions have a car wash guy outside. We only knew him as Yadi, right? And so Yadi used to clean our cars, at least 10 employees' cars once a week. And so I say, Yadi, you should open an account with us and start to save. And he was like, yes, Miss Bullet. I was thinking about approaching you. I really want to open an account and start to save and start to make some interest on my money. Because back in 2000, we had interest on accounts, right? And so I said, sure. So he brought in his passport and his proof of address and what have you. And we opened the account. Now, back then, again, this was new. We had never done it before. We didn't believe we had to do it, but this was the policy and we tried to follow it. And so what persons did was create a profile. And as when you walk in the bank right now, you see that they have a form that asks, how much money are you going to deposit and what's the frequency and what's the purpose of the account. And that profile is very important because that's what helps us to deter the money launderers, okay? Or that's what helps us to decide whether this transaction is suspicious or not, okay? And so Yadi, of course, he opened the account, he said, for savings. And he said that, okay, Miss Bullet, outside of my bills, I can deposit $50 a week. So I said, okay, that's very good. So every week he used to bring in the $50 and everything was going well. So one particular week, he said, Miss Bullet, I do a little something and I hit a lick and I have $10,000 to deposit. So I said, Yadi, what have you done? you know, and he said, Miss Bullet, yeah, I know you was gonna be proud of me. Please deposit this money on the account. So I said, Yadi, I'm very sorry, you know, I cannot deposit this money. And I said, Miss Bullet, but you tell me open this account and you tell me to save, but and now I have this money. So Alex, tell me why Miss Bullet couldn't in this how he was going to clean my car that same Friday. What was I gonna do?
So it was red flag because his activity just jumped in a week. And I guess using the colloquialism, hit a lick. That could be in any of many illegal things because gambling was illegal then, as well as well, drug trafficking is still illegal now. So yeah, those funds could have been derived from illicit means because you know it was in car cleaning.
Right, right. Okay, so Sharon, thank you. Very good. Alexia, Sharon, do you understand? I know I spoke some Bahamian dialect in there. You may not understand what Miss Bullet means. So tell me if you understand what happened. You have a car wash guy where you work?
Oh, well, there was this guy that went to open an account, right? And he said there was like a like a $40, I think, every week deposits. He will
Okay.
depositing that money, but then after that I just got lost because what I believe I understand is that he suddenly changed the amount of the deposits or the activity he was going to get the money from. Sorry.
Yeah. So it increased drastically. It didn't go just up to the $100. It went extremely outside of his profile, right? And he couldn't give a valid explanation as to where he got the funds from. So essentially, what he tried to do is place these funds into the financial services sector. Okay, he tried to place it into the bank. So I said, Yadi, you know, you have to tell me where you get this money from. And like Alex Dia said, is gambling in the Bahamas was illegal at that time. So he said, Miss Bullet, I win a number. You know, I could give you a little something out of that, you know. But what we have to do is we are the gatekeepers and we have to explain we cannot tip the customer off. So I had to take that money from him, deposit it, and then put it on hold and then contact my compliance officer to let her know that this amount of money is outside of his profile and it's suspicious. So then it's up to compliance to go and investigate as to, you know, whether or not he should have been able to make this deposit and where he got this money from. Because remember, I told you there are 21 crimes under money laundering, and drug dealing is one. At that time, gambling was one. He could have, you know, they doing murder for hire now. He could have made it from that, you know. So if there's not a legitimate reason, then you have to take the money. You cannot tip them off, and you have to then contact compliance to launch a suspicious transaction report. Okay.
Ms. Bullet,
So, sorry.
this brings to mind a case that a story that was running some months or years back dealing with the Derek Roll case. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, where he said that he got the $1 million and he was to share it, and he had everybody coming out trying to get a piece of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And the bank placed a stop or hold on it. Did they ever find if it was legitimate or not?
I don't think he ever had the money.
Okay.
I don't think the bank placed the stop or hold on it. I don't think he ever had the money.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's an example of placement where you place the money into the system. So had I not known Yadi personally, because of course we don't know everybody in the bank. We have over 800 customers. We won't know all of them. But what we need to do is check their profiles to make sure that the deposits that are being made are within their profiles. Now, a lot of banks have very savvy systems that will give an indicator to say this is outside of the profile, and some institutions don't. So if your bank does not have an indicator, there may be something that you need to do manually, or it may be somebody else's position to do it manually to ensure that these persons stay within the profile. So at Royal Bank, of course, we had a system. The compliance officer, even though I deposited that, she automatically got a ding on her side from the system saying that this was outside of his profile. She also got a report that said this was outside of her profile. And so that indicator checks the employee who would have made a commitment that anybody who works inside the financial services sector must disclose. And so there's a fine for failing to disclose, and there's a fine for tipping off. So had I taken the money and not launched the suspicious transaction form, I would have then been charged as well or arrested, or they would have taken out a suspicious transaction report on me because I am the gatekeeper. Okay, so as persons working in the financial services sector, we make a commitment that we will not tip the client off. I didn't say, Yadi, they go lock you up for this, take this money and run. You know, I wasn't allowed to do that. And I also had an obligation to ensure that I pass the word on to my compliance officer, because in the financial services sector, you know, a lot of people think that, oh, it's above my pay scale, or that is compliance job, but compliance is everybody's business. If we are going to combat money laundering and terrorist financing, stop the drug dealers, stop the corruption, stop the bribery. It's everybody has to commit to ensuring that they are aware of what the law says, and they follow the policy and the procedure. So you cannot fail to disclose, and you cannot tip the client off. Okay, so he placed that money into the system, and on a larger scale, a lot of persons, after the money is successfully into the system, then they send a wire to one company, they withdraw some money, they try all sorts of stuff to stay under the threshold. And so the central bank and the international bodies have done away with these thresholds, because in the Bahamas, it used to be that you didn't have to disclose if it was below 5,000, and so people deposited $4.99, and then they increased it to 10,000, so people deposited $9.99.
Yeah.
And now it's 15,000, so people deposit $14.99. Okay, so we call that smurfing. That's a term, and so now they've done away with that completely. It's out anything outside of your profile. Okay, and this is very important, because the other day at the Securities Commission, and I told that story because the car wash guy defrauded the Securities Commission of $850,000. Okay,
Wow.
and the Securities Commission is the regulator. Okay,
How
and
did
they
they
had
do
the
that?
same issue where they didn't even know the car wash guy name outside of Yachty, or an alias. And in the Bahamas, that is very, very common. Sharon, I don't know if you know what your car wash guy, his real name is. Do you know?
No.
Okay, and see, you call him an alias, right? Hey, Papi, or something like that. You don't even know his name, but our Securities Commission, they didn't even know his name. And the importance of his name, you know, compliance, the premise is know your customer. But you don't only know your customer now, you have to know your vendors. You have to know everybody associated in the financial services sector. Anybody who
Bullitt.
offers you a service.
Miss
Because
Bullitt,
Yes?
how was he able to defraud the Securities Commission of $850,000?
Okay, because he was cleaning the cars and somebody left their book with the checkbook in there, and he was able to remove it. So, you know, we have these laptop bags and stuff, and we don't bring them in and out of the car every time. Sometimes we go in valet park, you know, and that's why most banks have a clear desk policy, because people will dumpster dive and to get information. Okay, and so he was able to access it by clean. Somebody had left it in their car, and you know, like national insurance check has a free signature on it. So he was able to access it because he was cleaning the car and the person didn't miss it. Okay, but let me tell you something. Had they known his name outside of just calling him Yadi, They could have put his name, just like we world check all our customers. There's a system called world check where we check their names. He was previously charged with an armed robbery at either Royal Bank or Commonwealth Bank. So had they known his proper name, know your customer, were they not able to put his name right in Google and see that he was previously charged with armed robbery? Do you think they would have allowed him?
To touch the cars?
Ah, there you go. And he has been there for like 7 years as their car washer. So everybody is familiar, everybody is a friend, but we only know them as Yadi. And we let them access our personal, whatever we leave in our car. Sometimes it's our purse. Sometimes it's our laptop bag with all of the bank's information. Sometimes we bring home files.
But you know,
Correct?
my next question is, how is it that he was able to steal so much before he was detected?
Well, I don't know. Perhaps their finance department is behind. I don't know. Somebody obviously in doing various balance and checks. You know, years ago, Royal Bank used to have individual tellers and we would balance every night, and then they moved to a cash cage that balanced once a month because of the amount of money that was being handled. And I can tell you, in those first years, until we put extra controls in place, that cash cage was robbed left, right, and center. Okay? There was many instances coming out of the cash cage. So yeah, that's how. So the people, because staff are overworked and underpaid. You see, these, again, like I said, these hackers and these scammers and these people who infiltrating the systems, they know that we overwork and underpaid. They hang out with us so they could find out who, you know, who they could be their next victim. Whilst I was at Royal Bank, my teller the year I used to drop her home, pick her up, and she was the best teller I ever had. She took $70,000 from a blind man. Okay? And she was with me everywhere. So I'm sure they investigated me to make sure that I had nothing to do with it. I have many stories. It's the person that you least expect.
Least expect.
Yeah.
The least expect. I tell you, she was teller of the year, like 3 years straight. That's how good she was. Okay? So be very careful. Everybody who couldn't speak English, the blind, the deaf, everybody, she when we did the investigation, she had stolen like $300,000 in total from all of those people. Yeah, so they stick next to you and they befriend you, and they're hoping that you're rushed on a government payday. So many things happen because everybody tired, the line out the door, everybody trying to rush. So you have to be on your guard at all times. And look out for the person who is closest to you, because stealing is a disease. Once they start and they get away with it, like I tell you, you cannot eliminate risk. You can only mitigate it, means that you put proper controls in place to protect yourself. Think about the hospital, Bernice, or a doctor's office. When you go out, when the doctor says, take off all your clothes, and he leaves you for the 5 minutes, the prescription book right there. And the doctor says only scribble. I can take that prescription book. In fact, a very rich lady the other day, MP's wife, took the prescription book and went writing all the prescriptions that she wanted. Do you recall that story?
Yeah.
Okay. Very popular. Bernice?
No, I didn't hear about that. I'm sorry.
Okay, that was about 2 years ago. She just took the book. And so we take it for granted that, you know, we have access to these things. The doctors make you wait for 2 hours. You get bored. Think about it. You bored and you cold and you say,
Bad looking in cupboards and drawers.
right, let me just take this book. And then the one for somebody the other day at the prison, he was giving out 6 slips, left, right, and center to the prison. They just went to that poor doctor, had nothing to do. They was in that doctor office just waiting to be served. And that book was right there, and they slip it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so compliance is needed. Okay.
Yeah.
You all need that clear desk policy in doctor's offices as well.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's the truth.
Yeah. So I have millions of stories. Okay, so we
Well,
understand how the money is
okay.
placed.
Well, one question. Understanding that compliance officers are gatekeepers and they are supposed to ensure that companies' regulations to law. Are there any instances where the life of that compliance officer was ever threatened by persons who are thinking, because you watch Hollywood movies, eh? And then you see how this person from the bank put something in place and it stopped the money from the criminals. The criminals then understand who the CEO officer was, and they go after the CEO family. Is there any like really dramatic cases like that that you can recall, or has it ever happened?
Okay, so whilst I have a pin on this, do you have Netflix?
Yes.
Okay, I want you all to watch Dirty Money.
Okay.
Okay, so there's I think it's season 1, episode 4, but I'm not certain. It's about Mexican drug lords.
Okay.
Yeah, so an
I think I watched
HSBC.
it.
You watched it, Sharon?
I believe so, if I don't remember it wrong.
Right. Okay, so just take it. So I want us to be able to discuss it next week. So watch Dirty Money, HSBC. There are many cases you will fall off your seat. And again, I want everybody to watch it for awareness. So when
Okay.
you get in these positions, you don't feel intimidated or overwhelmed.
Okay.
Now to your question, Bernice.
Uh-huh.
Yes, the compliance officer normally holds the whistleblower policy.
Okay.
We all know Eric Snowden, right?
Yes.
Okay, so he blew the whistle on America, and then he had to run to Russia, I think, to
Yeah.
be protected.
Yeah.
Right. And so yes, it is a dangerous position. And as when you are regulated, central bank and the FIU, they ask you, please give me a private telephone number and a private email address outside of the bank's email and phone number. A lot of CEOs have been reported. Okay, and compliance has to be independent of the business. We can't be operational and we can't be functional. Now, a lot of institutions try to make you functional, but in order for you, you are the checker. So the checker can't check the checker. So you have to ensure that, you are independent of the business. You report directly to the board. Intimidate you, but the board is supposed to protect you. Okay. So over the years, there's been a lot of CEOs being reported and being removed. And so the regulators, they have an open door policy. They have an audience with the compliance professional once a year. They, like I said, they have private conversations outside of the bank or the financial institutions, email and numbers, so they can talk to you confidentially. Okay, because they know that there has been a lot of issues. And so now they have an analytics department that lends hands on. You pick them, you pick up the phone, you call them, and they respond right away to deal with these types of issues. Okay, so you shouldn't feel intimidated or like your life will be in danger. Now, I can tell you that they have also created a list because of the people we had at an institution where I worked. The CEO was very unscrupulous, and I pointed out some stuff, and I was let go because I pointed that out. However, 1 year later, central bank removed him because they found out that what he was doing, and they removed him from the bank. However, he was the majority shareholder, and he decided that, oh, I own all these shares, they can't remove me. So he took them to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court upheld central bank's decision, and he was removed from the country, and his shares were sold.
So how did that affect you?
Well, it didn't. I didn't. You have to make a decision that there's something called risk appetite, where the company decides the type of business they're gonna take on, and they started to take on like many Venezuelans. Venezuela is a sanctioned country, so the risk is higher. They took on a lot of high risk business, and when I advised them against it, I became an outcast, and so I decided that they were outside of my appetite, and we were just, they had a history of being in problems with the regulator, having fines, and I was really only hired to keep the bank open until they found a new buyer. Unfortunately, this new buyer was worse. was they found anybody, and so that I didn't have any connection. It didn't make a difference to me. So I played the waiting game with them, and when he went further to try and remove some $5 million, then I wouldn't sign off on it, and so they let me go. But 1 year later, central bank removed them.
So did they compensate you for standing your ground?
I didn't do anything. I walked away from the situation. I decided that it was outside of my risk my appetite. Yeah, and I no
Right.
longer wanted to be with the company, and so I was playing the waiting game with them, and so but I was happy that central bank caught up with them. But they had a history. They had a very bad history, and like I said, I went into the situation knowing that they had a very bad history. Speaking with the regulator, who asked me to just keep the financial institution open, try and meet some deadlines and cover some grounds until they found the buyer. Unfortunately, they found a very bad buyer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I got over it.
Wow.
I got an apology 2 years afterwards.
2 years.
2 years.
Was it anything you could take to the bank? Because words seem so
No.
meaningless in situations like this.
No, I just got an apology that they should have listened and whatever, but no compensation or anything.
And your work record, was it still tarnished by this?
Well, to me, the people who support him, I don't know. Like I never went back to request that the file be removed or whatever, because I imagine at that time they had written some unscrupulous things about me. But I never looked back at it, and I've been employed since, so I never paid it any mind. But I was very shocked when I got the apology.
You sound very interesting, Ms. Bullard. You should write a book.
Yeah, life is very interesting. Yeah. So, okay, good. So we understand placement. We're going to put that money into the system. Then we're going to move it around. We can send some to Alex Deal. We can send some to Sharon in Panama. We can take out some cash and give it to Bernice. And then once we take out that cash and give it to Bernice, Bernice could then pay our children's school fee. So that's how it's integrated back into the system. Okay.
Oh.
So essentially the money is washed and then it comes back out as legitimate money.
And you can trace this.
Well, they try and make it complex as possible so there's no audit trail. But again, that's the importance of knowing the policy.
Okay.
And knowing the procedures. So you know how, if you follow what the law says or what your policy says, then we should have a proper audit trail and we should be able to track it. And then when you go to court, you should be able to, hopefully, if they don't get the seal or Wayne Monroe, they don't win these cases. Because all you have to do is get the seal, Bernice, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, you know how the interest work. I had to tell you all the street way, and so you have to keep up and street smart. Sorry, Sharon. I hope you keeping up with us.
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
no problem.
Good. Okay. So we understand the stages. Okay. So that's really popular again on the final exam, but you have it for homework. So it asks you what the stages are and then how it affects the financial services center. And so when you have these questions normally have 3 parts, 3 or 4 parts. You want to ensure that you answer all parts. Okay. So you don't want to just say there are 3 stages in money laundering, layering, integration, placement, whatever, and give a definition, but then you want to give an example. Once you give that example, that proves that you comprehend, and that's where you get the major points. Okay, so you could go online. There are millions of cases. There's some cases at the back of the book. A lot of things happening in the newspaper. What I do is I've worked in offshore for the majority of my career, and so I dealt with Panama and Switzerland and what have you. And so what I did is I had established years ago a Facebook page just to track my kids to make sure they weren't doing anything unscrupulous online. Right. And so as they got older now and I don't have to track them any longer, I use that same page as my news feed. And so I have subscribed to the Panamanian news and the Swiss news and what have you. And so that helps me keep abreast of what's going on. And one day, I saw this name. I say, Alex D. Henry, where I know this person. So I say, where would I know this person from? I say, anyway, let me go to our system. I put that name in our system, and lo and behold, Alex D. was being charged with embezzlement in Panama, right?
dear.
And so I was able to be proactive rather than reactive, block that account and get some information to the FIU. And when I looked at the account, you could see the money being taken out, $1 million today, $2 million, like they were trying to get that money out of the bank account because they knew it would be frozen. Okay, so that's a way to help because, like I said, there's loads of information out there, and it's very easy to just overwhelm yourself with information, and you need to be able to see what is important and collate what is important or document what is important. Okay, and so the book further goes on to talk about the predicate crimes, and like I said, under money laundering, there are the 21 crimes now. The book talks about fraud and theft and counterfeiting, human trafficking, smuggling, tax evasion, and on and on. Now, remember I tell you all only poor people is go to jail. Now, around the world, you see presidents being impeached, people being removed. In Brazil, the law says you are guilty until proven innocent. So if imagine that you let somebody infiltrate your system or your financial services institution and they come and lock you up. So the governor of Brazil has been to jail. The president of Brazil has been impeached. Okay, and all across the Caribbean is seeing persons being brought before the courts. And like I said, the Bahamas is being internationally watched. So be careful on your P's and Q's. Like I said, there's no way to eliminate it, but you have to know the policy and procedure because when the police come in, telling the police that's above my pay grade or go see Miss Fuller, she is the compliance officer.
Right, you like to say that.
Stands. Yeah, that does not stand. Our Bahamian law has been expanded. Not only does the compliance officer go to jail, the CEO goes to jail, and anybody involved in the transaction. So if you are that account opening officer and you don't ensure that you document what you do and follow the procedure, you could go to jail too. And we have no bail money, and we can't afford to seal. So therefore, read your policy. I don't know does not cut it. Okay, I don't know might mean you're going to jail. Okay, so be very careful. Okay, so in chapter 1, there are a lot of pictures. You just go and put them in Google, and they just tell you again about the different cycles and the various ways that people try to smuggle all sorts of stories out there. But I haven't got my own, so just be careful and make sure you know what the policy says and ensure that your work policy does not have a gap because a lot of times, people wrote these policies and they make mistakes. If the laws was deficient for the last 20 years, the policies have to be deficient, right?
Yeah.
And most institutions, they don't even have somebody who is responsible for updating these policies or ensuring. So compliance will send a message out to the accounting team and say, listen, the accounting policy has been expired since 2013. The laws have changed. When are you going to update it? So you have to constantly push. But what is happening in the meantime? Staff are not trained and we're not following procedures the way we should. So if you find that, your policy should have a version date on it, the same institution where I was hired, when I went there, their policies say 2003. Okay, and this was in 2018 when all the laws had changed. And so I had to scramble and push these people, and a lot of people think it's compliance jobs. It's not compliance job. I can't write a credit policy. I can't write a finance policy, but I have
Yeah.
to push the head of finance. I have to push the head of HR to ensure that they do their job and that I review it, give my input, and make sure it's up to date. So that's another project. You need to look around your institution, look at the policies and procedures, and ensure, see what dates are on them, and then you'll know if you're covered. And if you're not covered, then go to the law. I mean, go to your regulators website and make sure that you print out their AML policy or any other policy for which department that you're in. Okay?
Wow.
Okay, good. Any questions on money laundering? We understand how to answer the questions. We know how to go and do research and give an example. And we know what the money laundering crimes are. Good?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Very good. And so chapter 2, that's chapter 1. Chapter 2 talks about terrorism. Okay, and of course, we are all familiar with 9/11. Everybody knows what happened in New York. Sharon, you familiar with 9/11?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. So we all know what happened with 9/11, okay? And so the book says the objective of terrorism is to intimidate a population or to compel a government or an international organization to do or abstain from doing any act. And so that's just the definition. And of course, we all know about Al-Qaeda and Jihadis and all the various different terrorist organizations across the world. But what we don't talk about is our domestic terrorists, okay? And so I would like to focus, and I think one of the homework questions focused on domestic terrorism. So in 2019, we know that there were 365 days of the year. However, there were more than 365 domestic terrorism acts in America in 2019. Okay? And in the Bahamas, you know, they say if America sneezes, we get a cold. Okay? And so I am very, very afraid that this could possibly be the Bahamas. And we only have 400,000 people, so we can't afford for that to happen. Okay? And we have seen sprinkles of it. We have seen the Fox Hill Park, it's a park in the Bahamas where 8 people were shot. We have seen a baby shower where 13 persons were shot. And now, just most recently in April, 6 persons were shot, executed big in the day, 12 o'clock in the day, 1 o'clock in the day. Okay? So we want to be very careful, and we want to ensure that we put controls in place before domestic terrorism becomes systemic in the Bahamas. Okay? So we don't have such a problem with Al-Qaeda and the jihadists and all those people. But we have a gang problem. And that's where the terrorism seems to be stemming from. So we wanna just have the awareness about it, and we wanna do some research on it to ensure that we understand how to put controls in place to mitigate that risk, okay? So I just wanted to speak on that.
Wait a minute. Oh, that's a very interesting point. How, as a compliance officer, do you control or mitigate domestic terrorism?
Okay, and again, the same way you do with money launderers. You want to ensure that they're not financing their business through your institution because they need somewhere to keep that money, right? And this book says that terrorists need financing for a wide variety of purposes, for recruitment, for training, for weapons, for travel, for material, for safe haven protection, right? And so where are they getting these high-powered weapons from? How can they afford it? A lot of them live down in the ghetto. They can barely pay rent, but you can afford an AK-47,
Mm.
right? Recruitment. These boys need to go to the front line in Afghanistan because they don't miss. They shooting head. They don't miss. Every day a young man is dead. Okay, it's a plague. Okay, who training them? Okay, so all of this costs money, correct? And who
Yeah.
is giving them incentives to join these gangs?
Mm.
And once they then commit these crimes, where they living? Who keeping them?
Mm.
Safe havens, where, how,
Yeah.
right? And so that we need to ensure that this money isn't being coming to the Royal Bank of Canada,
Mm.
okay, or CIBC, okay, or any other bank. And they say, it is believed that terrorists raise funds by the abuse of charities. Could that be the Children's Emergency Hostel?
What?
Could that be Bishop Lawrence Road, who feeding the people every Wednesday?
Oh my.
Could that be the wrongfully home? Okay, so we have those accounts for sure. We have all the non-profit accounts. We have to ensure that we know our customer and where their money is coming from. Okay, and of course, the drug trafficking money we've had in the banks for years, kidnapping, fraud, extortion, robbery. When you rob the bank or you rob somebody, where you keeping this money? Under the mattress? Throw it in the bank,
In the bank.
right? So we have to be careful. We have to be careful. And are we aware that on September 11th, terrorists came to the Bahamas? Are we aware of that?
No,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Okay, so on September the 11th, an American airline plane touched down in Freeport. Two terrorists believed to be flying that they are playing from Freeport into the White House. Did not have the proper documentation, and our immigration officers, back in 2001, when all these laws and policies and procedures that just come out, was able to tell them, no, we can't let you into the country. You'll have to go back on the same plane that y'all came on and go back to where y'all came from. Our immigration, who we don't believe in, right? So that, could you imagine if that plane had taken off from the Bahamas and went into the White House, what would have been the repercussion of the Bahamas for years?
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
Right, and we have, what, 3 international airports. We have an airport on Exuma. We have an airport on Eleuthero. We have an airport in San Salvador. All of these are international airports.
Right.
Do we have trained professionals to man these airports and make sure? Do we?
No, we don't. We don't. Because an example of that would have been, well, the case in the news the other day about the unfortunate case where the 2 pilots were killed in the plane crash. You know, they went into an airport that basically doesn't even have a structure up, like a building up at the airport, quote unquote. And so we have a lot of, I guess, unregulated systems within the supposedly regulated system.
Okay. Do we have compliance? Making sure. Who ensures and enforces regulation?
Right.
Right. Okay. Good. So thank God, in departments of immigration didn't accept a tip
Right.
back in 2001, because it could have been
Wow.
simple as let me give you $10,
Yes.
you know, and let me through. And so thank God. Thank God. Okay. So
Wait, did they ever actually decorate these officers for their act of service to the country and to
In
our
fact-
relationship with the
fact-
U.S.?
Perhaps they did. Perhaps they did. But, you know, there was so much trauma,
Yeah.
you know, and so many lives that had to be saved. You know, I don't, most people in the Bahamas, they don't even know that they were here.
This is
lot
the
of
first
people
time
don't
I'm
even know
hearing
that.
about it.
Sorry?
This is the first time I'm hearing about
Yeah,
this.
well, they talked about it in the House of Assembly a few times, but then it just, you know, it fell along the wayside.
The same way how they could have this memoriam to the um, Flamingo, USS Flamingo, for the Defense Force officers that perished that day. You understand? Why not only decorate persons that died? You should need to decorate people that are also living that made a contribution.
Because we are a world of reactive people
Yes.
instead of proactive people.
Yes.
And so it's always
Yes.
after instead of before. And so
Yeah.
that's just like a cultural thing that we have to change.
That's sickening.
Yeah, so we have to start, you know, people say be the change that you want to see, and
Yeah.
that's 100% true. Be
Yeah,
the change and then encourage other people to change as well.
true.
Yeah,
That's true. Wow.
okay. Okay, good. So we have an idea of terrorism. We see why they finance. We see the importance. The other day, you know, Bishop Lawrence Rowley is doing a very good job. He is requesting donations and he is feeding the people every Wednesday. However, you know, there's a nonprofit law that came out that was one of our 40 recommendations that were deficient. And people were saying, oh my God, how can you stop him from feeding the people and saying that he has to get regularized and, you know, register with the Registrar General or you're going to close his account? But think about it. If terrorists use charities to finance their recruitment and safe haven and weapons and all these things to their objectives, would Bishop Lawrence Rule turn away $100,000 if somebody approached him and said, this is $100,000. I want you to take $50,000 and feed the people and send me this next $50,000.
Yeah.
Would he know?
No, he wouldn't.
Okay. So
And
therefore,
yeah.
people, you know, they had internationally, they had to increase the fine. They said if he feeds the people and does not register, he will be charged $10,000.
Oh,
And
wow.
people lashed out against the government and they said, how heartless could you be? The government ain't feeling the people. How could you stop him from doing God's work? But this is why, this is the importance again. These laws were out from 2000. Here it is in 2021, where it was finally enforced, where they said, listen, and I don't know if you would have seen it in the papers where all of the charities were told, if you cannot regularize your
Yes.
account, if you do not register, you have to close your account. And there was so much public outcry.
Yeah.
But this is just intro, and we know that if somebody was terrorist financing, he would be the perfect candidate
Yes.
right away.
Mhm.
Question,
Mhm.
Ms. Bullard.
Yeah.
When it comes to compliance, how does that connect with our island lock establishments?
Okay, so they used to be against the law. Now the laws are in place, and so they are part of the financial service industry. They have compliance officers. They can't get their license. They are just like a bank. There's no difference. They are regulated.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that they had come into compliance. I mean, because at one point we were hearing, I remember, I think they said they listed the companies that were given licenses, given licensure to practice. Chance was not on that list, but yet we saw Chance businesses open.
Right. Well, first of all, Chance perhaps did not have, you have that, remember, established this compliance
Oh.
department. So you had to find that 100,000, 500,000 to invest, you know, to in that compliance department. And I guess they they did not believe they had to do it at that time back in 2015 when they became
Right.
regularized.
Right.
Yeah, so in the beginning, they didn't believe they had to do it. Nobody believed the banks didn't believe it. Review, which y'all did, and my entire staff, we were 3 months of overtime. Because back then, central bank used to come in once every 5 years, so we waited 5 more years before we used to take it from some people. So when laws come in place, they don't, people just don't snap their fingers. We dealing with human beings.
Okay.
And there's a stage people have to believe, then you have to train the people so they have to understand. Then even after you train them, you have to wait 90 days for sustainability to see if they doing it right or if they remember what you train them. And then they act. So the banks have been in a constant what should I say, cycle of redoing, and then the laws change. We just get used to one law. Now we have to do it differently. And so it's a spinning wheel, like with the Bahamas, this is beyond. So the central bank and the regulators are now working on enforcement, and we have to, look good in front of the international community so we're not blacklisted. So now they are more hands-on. They be not just calling once every 6 years now. Every day I talk to the regulator, and it's unbelievable. So compliance had to split into AML,
Right.
compliance, risk, governance. So there's no, before nobody wanted to spend this money. And so they put 10 hats on compliance. Now everybody's working on compliance. I'm regulatory compliance officer. I deal only with the regulator because I get a call every day or a request or something where, I have to go and do research and go around the entire organization. And then there's risk, which is a heavy fine if a risk assessment isn't done. And so it's expanded so much. Organizations, I went into audit one of the larger commercial banks, and they had one person. Everything that we requested, they sent us to one person. And so we said, is this person just the coordinator for the audit? They said, no, that person does all those risk, compliance, AML, and governance. We said, no, that person is overwhelmed. They had to hire 4 people because they had 15,000 accounts. They had one person doing all that work. So there was no way that person could be effective. Okay? There was no way.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is grown, and like I say, the credit unions too have recently, they used to have like a regulatory body. Now they report to the central bank, and they're still on a learning curve. In 2018, I had somebody who showed up in intro class who said he was the compliance officer for one of the credit unions, and he was just an intro, but he had been there the longest. He had been with the credit union for 25 years, so they made him the compliance officer. He had never worked in
Wow.
compliance. Okay, so here it is. He is the compliance
But just
officer.
to come into compliance with the regulatory
Yeah.
requirement, we gotta put
Right. So they
somebody.
just push him into the position. He wasn't even interested in it, or else he would not have another job.
Wow.
So in 2019, they enforced risk assessments that had never been enforced before, that was updated in law. Nobody knew what to do. He definitely didn't know what to do. Okay? And by when the deadline, it was 2 assessments, an AML assessment due in June and enterprise-wide assessment due in October. He missed the deadline in June. They got a fine. And then the Securities Commission, if you report to them, they say they charging you per day. They charge you like $5,000 a day.
What?
That's your whole salary. Yes.
Hefty,
Yes.
hefty fine.
Yes. And so therefore, by the end of, before October reached, they let him go. There was too much fines. He just lost his job after 25 years. And it was very sad because he was placed in an unfair position. And that's why I want you to watch Dirty Money to get some awareness, because you have some institutions that are very unscrupulous. Henfield, I think you're just in compliance as an assistant. They
Yes.
offer you the head of compliance. And hey, you thinking, oh, I had a nice car, a nice office, cell phone, and a big salary. But then you end up going to jail. Because
Mhm.
you know, and so you have to be careful of those things. You got to be sure that you properly train. Not 100%, but you should be at least 70% and then willing to upgrade yourself to be able to handle the position that you're in. Because a lot of people in positions simply because they don't know what to do and they can be taken advantage of.
Good
Okay, that's
Lord.
a big thing now. Very big thing. So be careful when they offer you this $100,000 salary. I was offered $100,000 and they told me everything would be done in the UK. I only had to sign off on it.
That don't sound right.
Okay. And then you all see Miss Bullet Hall before the court. No, no, no. No bail money. I can't afford to see you. Yeah. Okay. So we have an overview on how it works, and I want you all to be careful and protect yourself. But you have to take some time and read the policy. You have to understand. Make sure that you have a job description. Make sure that you understand what your institution's AML policy states. Okay, and protect yourself. Bernice, you will read, find out who your regulator is. You get all the policy and procedure, and then you make sure that your institution has their own policy and procedure based on the services and the products that they offer. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Okay, so we wanna just again for awareness, we wanna read chapter 4, and Alex D, I have to nominate you because I don't think Bernice and Sharon have their book.
Okay,
And
no
so
problem.
we want to
Chapter
turn to
4.
the back. We want to turn to the back at case 4,
Okay.
and we will cap off how ISIS financed their terrorist attacks. Okay,
Okay.
if you see the yellow paper at the back,
The yellow paper.
at the back of the book.
No, I don't think I can see it.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah,
mine is
Alex,
kind of pink.
yeah, pink is fine. Yeah, so
Yeah.
again, all of these excerpts are taken from various places off the internet. So that's why we put it like that in case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4. And again, just to give you some awareness. Okay, so if you look at case 4,
Right. That's how do ISIS terrorists finance their attacks?
correct. Okay,
Okay.
so we want to read, we're going to read the first 2 pages.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it starts meeting in Turkey just 2 days after the horrific terrorist attacks in Paris. Leaders of the G20 countries issued a statement condemning recent Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, ISIS, attacks and reaffirmed their commitment to combat terrorism. More specifically, the group of industrial nations recommitted itself to tackling the financing channels of terrorism, which begs the question, how does ISIS finance its international operations? ISIS is primarily financed through a wide array of criminal activities, large and small, centered in the parts of Syria and Iraq that are under the group's control. ISIS steals livestock, sells foreign fighter passports, taxes minorities and farmers and truckers, runs a sophisticated extortion racket, kidnaps civilians for ransom payments, loots antiquities, and much more. It makes about $40 million a month from illicit oil sales alone. But these sources primarily support the group's expensive state building and war fighting enterprises back home, ranging from paying teachers' salaries and collecting the garbage to bribing tribal leaders and paying fighters' salaries. There is, however, an entrepreneurial self-financing model that ISIS recruits and supporters around the world have been encouraged to use to fund either their travel to ISIS-controlled land or perhaps their attacks in the West. While it is too soon to state with any certainty how the Paris attacks were funded, the likelihood is that they were funded in whole or in part through local criminal activities or otherwise legal activities such as the use of state welfare benefits or taking out a loan. None of these would surprise, since authorities have been tracking the use of such funding schemes by prospective foreign terrorist fighters looking to join ISIS. Indeed, earlier this year, a Financial Action Task Force, or the FATF, report identified several potential revenue streams for would-be foreign terrorist fighters, including robbery and drug trafficking, various social service payments, and unpaid loans. Some potential plotters or travelers took on short-term jobs to raise the money they needed, while others simply drew on their savings or student loan accounts. Consider
Okay,
a few
Alex, you
examples.
stop right there for me, please.
Okay,
Alex,
sure.
yeah, okay. So Bernice, what this is saying is, you remember we had Hurricane Dorian,
Yes.
and many persons had to go to social services. All the people from Abaco and Freeport came into the capital, they went to social service.
Uh-huh.
And they took their social service payments and sent it to ISIS. Because you know, in the United States, they get about $800 and they get it in cash.
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, they get about 800 in cash. So could you imagine that they stood on that line, the government borrowed money, but instead of helping themselves, they stayed in the gym and they sent their money to ISIS. That's what they're saying.
They send the money to ISIS?
Yes,
How
it
did,
says social
how did
service
they do it?
payments. But
By-
they wire the money. They wire the money in different parts of Afghanistan. They have a payment system called Hawala payments.
Mhm.
It's like the barter system, like back in the
Yeah.
day, where if I had rice and you had a cow, you would give me meat and I would give you rice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in different parts of the world, let's say China or Russia, they would, find like-minded persons and they would send merchandise and you would send money or you would give food or what have you. So you can Google Hawala payments so you can find out more on how it works. So it's like an exchange system.
I need to be right.
Yeah.
Hawala
So
payment.
Hawala payments.
Okay.
Right. So Sharon, it also says you needed a student loan to come to BIFS. So you went into your bank and you got that student loan. And instead of coming to BIFS and taking this intro class, you send that money to ISIS.
Right.
Oh,
Could you do
okay.
that?
But someone else is like helping out to make those. I mean, I wouldn't do that, but someone else is actually like there has to be someone in for example, in the school that is actually wiring those payments, saying that I am the one. Let's say that it is me. So there's someone in the institution that is wiring that money instead of actually giving a student loan.
Right. And so you go to the bank. Let's say you go to the bank and they say, well, bring an invoice. And you said, oh, I don't have an invoice. The school was busy. Can you just give me cash? They give you cash and then you wire it to ISIS rather than pay and come to school.
Oh, okay. I think I've heard that in the UK with some of the, yes, of course, with some of the student loans.
Yeah. Or even you just say, I want a loan for vacation. Would you go and take a loan for vacation and send that money to ISIS?
No, I'd rather go on vacation.
Right. There you go. So again, just to create, this is how it works, Bernice. This is how they get the recruitment. This is how they have the safe havens. Let's remember Bin Laden now. Bin Laden lived 10 years comfortably. When they found him, he was in a 2-bedroom house, a 2-story house, with wives and children. Okay? How did he live for 10 years? Because I always say, if I lose my job and I call my parents that love me and I say, can I come home? I lost my job. They're going to say, how long are you going to stay? And every day they're going to ask me, are you looking for a job? Correct? And they love
Yes.
me. So
Yes.
how was Bin Laden able to live for 10 years with wives and children and in air conditioning? I couldn't turn my mommy air conditioner on one day. She had put me out. I definitely couldn't bring a husband and some children.
Okay.
She'd be like, where that man
He
going?
was being financed.
Okay. And so he lived for 10 years from his network. And so this is why I want you to go network. Do you see the importance of networking?
Yeah.
He needed insulin every day. We are working and it's difficult for us to afford our medication. Not working and got insulin every day.
Oh my.
Network. And so the only thing that I want us to take from Bin Laden is that we have a network as strong as Bin Laden, nothing else.
Right.
And we use it for our good. Okay?
Wow.
Because we know we can't call nobody for help to that extent and live comfortably. Okay? So that's how extreme it is. Okay? So, Alex, you just read the bottom paragraph and we'll stop there.
Hey,
Okay.
before you go on, Miss
Mhm.
Bullard, I wanted to actually ask the clause that you mentioned that what crime is never ended, you can't eradicate it, just only mitigate. In your years and experience, have you seen yourself making a contributive difference in the industry, or have you been inundated by companies and powerful people who simply seem to get away with wrongdoing?
Um, both.
Okay.
I have been inundated with companies, and this was after I was at Royal for 16 years. And there's just a difference between the Canadians and the Swiss. I found that the Canadians are very conservative in terms of laws and rules. They are more stringent. And so you can be more twice you'd have to. I was at Royal Bank Wealth Management, and when my passport expired, they blocked the Royal Bank Wealth Management account. You know what I mean? As if I wasn't a staff member and we wasn't a affiliated company. That's how strict they are, right? And I thank God for that Canadian, training, or else I would not have known better. Now the Swiss, they argue, they debate, they are very desperate, and there's a lot of pretense, and so that's where I found very unscrupulous persons who felt that they were above the law and who debated daily on the policies and procedures and tried to make me feel that I took away the ease of doing business, right? So it just depends on which type of company you work for. Luckily, I got the proper training. I feel very sorry for persons who I would say grew up in the Swiss system because it's not very sound. And I don't think it's just my opinion that it's not proper. Since I've been teaching, primarily there are people who are interested in making a difference and who have ethics and integrity. And they are receptive to the right way of doing things. So that's what I could say. Thankfully, the persons who are trained, and the difference is education and training. It really makes a difference. Because I've even had persons in the Swiss who, were very unscrupulous and then went to school and said, okay, we see why all this is necessary. So wherever you go, the world, this is a very evil world. The Lord says that we will be reasonably happy in this world and supremely happy with it. And so once we know that the devil has a job, he shows up every day, and when he shows up, some people let them let the devil use them, then you'll be fine. I don't get overwhelmed by it any longer. And the more awareness I have, I just accept it, that there's a lot of evil in the world.
Hmm.
Yeah, so you'll be fine, Bernice. Don't overthink it. It starts with you. Everywhere
Yeah.
you go, there's evil. Everywhere you go, we are sinners. And so you make the decision that I am going to try to do better because I know better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't worry about the rest. I saw a teacher. She used to teach Spanish, and she was in the public school system. She had a heart attack over people and their attitudes and how unscrupulous they were and the evil and the system. And like she was just so torn and heartbroken over the amount of evil that she sees every day. To me, that contributed to her stress levels. And unfortunately, she died. And so that was a big eye opener to me that you have a job to do, you know what is right, and you ought to do what is right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't worry about the rest. And when when you go into these institutions, realize that you're dealing with principalities and warlocks and demons, and so you're no match for them. I sorry to go on to church. Sharon looked at me like, man,
It's all right. No, because it's telling me about your the very fact that you are able to actually deal with a job like this for
Yeah.
so many years. It's because your focus is right.
Yeah, it has to be on the Lord or you won't make it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, the financial services sector is very, very stressful. And I've seen many women, when they hit menopause, they just lose it.
I'm in school.
They just
Class,
what?
my teacher's
They
right
lose
there.
it. They mentally.
Oh,
And so this is why you have to, as you get older, start to let things go.
yeah.
And know when something is bigger than you. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But
That makes
don't,
sense.
you also have to remember, I fear no evil, for thou art with me.
Yes.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and that's all I say when I get in these situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, good, Alex, dear. Take us home.
Okay, consider a few examples. Michael Z. Hafterbo, who murdered a Canadian soldier before attacking Canadian Parliament buildings in October 2014, worked at one of the Alberta oil fields to raise money for his attempted travel to Syria. Petty crime has the potential to bring in sufficient funds for a homegrown attack or transportation to a combat zone as well. There is the case of the 15-year-old boy in Montreal who held up a convenience store with a knife, stealing some $2,200 to pay for his plane ticket out of Canada. The teen's father turned him into the police after finding the money in his son's bag. Or take the 4 men arrested in February in Brooklyn, New York, for attempting to join ISIS. Some of their funds were supplied by a supporter who operated mall kiosks selling kitchenware and cell phones. According to the indictment, a round-trip ticket to Istanbul cost a mere $598. One of the defendants expected that he would not need to bring more than $400 to travel to Syria because he would not have to pay any concerns in the land of the Islamic State. In Britain, the Metropolitan Police's Counterterrorism Command Unit has noted several cases where jihadists financed themselves through state-funded welfare payments. Most recently, Yahia Rashid, used his student loans and educational grants to cover the travel costs for himself and 4 friends to go join ISIS in Syria via Morocco and Turkey. Closer to home, Christopher Cornell, who stands accused of plotting to detonate pipe bombs at the US Capitol and shoot people as they ran away, simply saved money to conduct his attack, according to the FBI. In several cases, including the shooting in Canada, individuals whose travel to Syria was thwarted turned to deadly attacks at home instead, easily redirecting transportation funds toward homegrown acts of terrorism.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Alex. You have your 5% in the first class. You go, girl.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good.
I hope I can get my 5% too, but I have no book.
Okay, so you make sure you speak to the office, Bernice, and you get your book. So
Where's
you
the,
can write it.
where's
I
the office
found-
located?
You found it, Sharon. You got
Yes, it's the one that says 02 case 1 and
yes,
2.
yes. You should have 3 and 4 though.
Let me see. Yes, I have 3.
Yeah, and 4.
I think I'm still missing number 4, but I can, just send an
Email and they'll send it to you. Yes, and so you can read it in your own time. And again, just to create awareness of how extreme persons are. And what we must remember is, money laundering is normally for profit. terrorist financing is ideological, which means that this is their belief. Many Muslims in the Middle East, they believe that if they, become a suicide bomber, or they finance ISIS, that they will die and go to heaven, and they will their family will become rich, and they will have virgins and what have you. And so imagine, just like Christianity, we grew up on like the TD Jakes and Miles Monroe, and imagine somebody telling us that that's fake and we should not listen to them. And so
Yeah.
really a lot of them grew up believing that this is the way to go and what they should do. So it may seem extreme to us, however, it's normal to them. Okay, so this is why we read about it, because this is beyond our wildest dreams. Like, until I got into compliance, I never even dreamt that people who would go to social service or would go and get a loan or what have you, but people have gone and gotten a loan and sent it to DDJs or the Benny Hinn or for healing or what have you. And so it's on the same premise that they believe that they are doing what they ought to do. Okay?
Interesting.
Good. Any questions?
Not so far.
Good. Okay, so give me some feedback. Tell me if this was a lot, so I could know for next week if to scale it back, or were we able to digest it? Were we able to stay awake the entire class? Are we going to retain this and
Oh,
be able
yes.
to apply this in our essays?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh,
Okay.
yes. This is very interesting. To me, very eye-opening. I am grateful that I'm able to see at this stage of my life that there is something outside of, I can actually get myself out of a peg hole that is called health, and try actually experiencing something different in another industry. So I am definitely interested. I am definitely moving forward with the learning regiment, and I want to take that ICA in January, and I'm all in, Miss Bullard. I'm all in.
Okay, that's excellent, Bernice. Thank you. What about you, Sharon? I know we have a little bit of a language barrier, and when I'm talking Bahamian dialect, you don't even know what I mean.
No, it's all right. And the thing is that actually, well, my company is in a partnership with a company there in the Bahamas. So I have like normally, these Zoom or meetings, calls with people from a lot of islands in the Caribbean, including the Bahamas. So I am used to the accent. So no, don't worry at all. I'm trying to also enhance my English skills, so it's fine.
Okay, excellent. And if you need any extra help, just let me know. Or if I need to slow down, just let me know.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. Alex, dear, I was awake the whole class.
It was. No, it was very engaging, and some of the illustrations that I've seen so far in the handbook were very familiar to me as we put together the training material at work. So I think I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to tying in the practical with the theory, the practical work that I do with the theory aspect of it, to bring it all, to tie it all together. So I think it's gonna be a really good course. As even though it's short, I think it's gonna be really, really informative.
Okay, good, excellent. Okay, so again, very comprehensive, loads of information, but I don't want y'all to fall asleep and forget about Ms. Bullard. Okay, I want you to retain some of this. So the key is, to be organized and find something that you like and unwind, and have some fun, relax, and then pick the book up. So be refreshed when you pick the book up, and you will find that as you read, you will retain it. If you are overwhelmed and rushing and trying to get home from work, trying to deal with the kids, trying to do all these things, then you just confuddled. And I had a lot of mothers and a lot of wives, I had to speak to some husbands and say, listen, they made a commitment, and this is an investment. Okay, she could have bought a Gucci bag, she could have gone on vacation, she could have bought a new cell phone, but she paid to go to class. And so we want her to get 100% of her investment. So just try and speak to your family so they can assist you with your duties. Try and get off the cooking duty, and so you can have that extra time. Try and donate like 2 hours per week to reading and doing your research and getting your homework done. And I promise you, you will find all of this beneficial, and you will be successful in the end. So it just calls for a little bit of organizing and a little bit of support from your family members to help you get through this. Because as it is online, it's more difficult. And some women have said, well, I have to come into class because my husband don't understand that I am online, or the kids don't understand if they see me. So try and speak to them to help, let them know that this will, benefit the family as a whole once you get this designation, and that you also do need to unwind and take a little break and feel good so you can retain it. Okay, because a lot of times we just listen and tomorrow we forget everything because we're so overwhelmed by life. Okay, so a little bit of organization helps.
2 points, Ms. Bullard. One, I work a 24-hour shift, and when we see, like tonight, today I went to work this morning, taking a break, having this class. I headed to work for 11 o'clock tonight. I'm just saying that to say that I may not be available every Thursday between the hours of 6 and 9. And I wanted to know if that would affect my attendance percentage or contribution.
No, once you were here, I fully understand. Just if one person was, we used to have it on Saturdays and it was a Sabbath. And so what she did is she just sent me an email and said, I read the newspaper today, and please share this with the class. So if it gets to that point where you miss all the classes, then just shoot an email and I will share on your behalf, for your 5% as well as your attendance. And then everything is recorded. And so just schedule some time within a week to listen to the recording, because I find that people find it hard to listen to 6 hours versus 3. It becomes a bit burdensome if you don't at least listen to the recording once a week.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
That's wonderful. I forgot the second one, but I'll probably ask you later.
Okay. So are there any more questions or concerns? No? Okay, so have a fabulous week. And remember to feel good and unwind and digest this and then pick it back up. And we'll do this again next week on Thursday.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Good night.
Okay.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.